Welcome, folks. I'm Jaby Koay, joined by STEPH, and we're looking at Ever Had Deja Vu? This is why. This is from Thoughty2, the YouTube channel. You guys, thanks so much for hanging out here. Hit that subscribe button, bell icon, all notifications, and vote this up. Let YouTube know you're enjoying what you're watching. While you're subscribing and upvoting, subscribe to Thoughty2. There's a link in the description below if you want to click on that, give the original an upvote, and subscribe to them from there.
Hey, Thoughty2 here. The film Groundhog Day, released back in 1998, is set in the town of Woodstock. No, not that one. And tells the story of Bill Murray's character, Phil Connors, who repeatedly relived February the 2nd. Hey, Thoughty2 here. The film Groundhog Day, released back in 1998, is set in the town of Woodstock. No, not that one. And tells the story of Bill Murray's character, Phil Connors, who repeatedly relives February the 2nd. Wait, did I do that bit already? Chances are that, like me and good old Bill Murray, you've had that strange feeling where you feel like you've already experienced a situation before, even though you know you haven't. That sensation, of course, is deja vu. And between 60 and 80% of us will experience it at some point in our lives. But what exactly is deja vu, and what causes it? Well, according to Professor of Psychological Science, James Lampinen, deja vu is a strong sense of global familiarity that occurs in a seemingly novel situation. It's that little nagging voice in your head saying, "I've been here before," when you know that's not quite the case, unless you're eating cheese straight out of the fridge at 2 a.m. We both know it's not your first time. The phenomenon was first named by a French parapsychologist, Émile Bourac, in 1876. The name itself is fairly self-explanatory. Déjà vu means already seen in French. But why was it a parapsychologist, someone who studies psychic phenomena, who was so interested in it? Well, at the time, déjà vu was considered so strange, it was thought to be something supernatural, much like clairvoyance or mediumship. For many years, it was considered an area unworthy of study, most often explained away as a side effect of reincarnation, or possibly even alien abduction. Never been in this room before that somehow feels so familiar? Well then, you must have been here in a past life, obviously. Either that or aliens vigorously probed you on this very spot before wiping your brain.
Ew.
The name déjà vu itself has become a catch-all term for unexpected familiarity, but there are actually several different varieties of the phenomenon to remember. Déjà entendu is the sense you've already heard something that is in fact new to you. Not to be confused with Déjà Nintendo, which is when you suddenly remember you've been playing Pokemon for 6 days straight and need to get a life. There's also déjà pensé, the feeling you've had a particular thought before, when in reality you haven't. Déjà goûté relates to food. And déjà voulu, weirdly enough, is the sense you've desired something or someone before when you haven't. It's important to note that déjà vu is completely different to precognition, which is where people have the feeling they know what's about to happen. That's not déjà vu as much as it is claiming to be a psychic and mental. To be on the safe side, psychologists have actually tested this out. Back in the 1950s, when scientists had free rein to attach whatever they felt like to people's brains, direct stimulation of the frontal cortex, which induced déjà vu, was found to also produce the feeling of premonition, but without granting any actual power to predict things or see the future in any way. And more recent, less brain-proby experiments have found exactly the same thing. These days, we separate déjà vu into two distinct types. The first, what we'd consider regular déjà vu, is seemingly random, and the second is associated with neurological conditions, like temporal lobe epilepsy. This latter form is usually accompanied by other symptoms, and is termed pathological déjà vu.
Quick thing, I was told a long time ago, you know that the feeling that people have described like experiencing the presence of God?
Yeah.
Apparently, there is like a part of your brain that if they have the electrical thing, like a cathode or whatever it's called, and they run it over a certain part of your head, they can make you feel that feeling. It's super bizarre because my former best friend who's an atheist, or was an atheist, I don't know what he is now. He was a hardcore atheist, and he's like, the presence of God is just like, it's a feeling in your brain. The magical part of my brain goes, well, what if God put that there so he could talk to you? Like maybe it's his button to access you, you know, maybe that's why it exists.
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah, I hear about that all the time. Like it's craziest thing when people like die and then have these experiences when they come back.
Yeah, see their whole life flash before their eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a trip.
I've talked to people who have actually died and have come back.
Oh, shit.
2 people, in fact. Wildly, both of them had died multiple times. Like one of them on the operating table, like died 3 times and came back. The one person I'm thinking of has like a permanent thing in his chest that helps to keep his heart. Yeah, I know, just like Iron Man. And the other person I'm thinking of is a YouTuber. Both of them were like, yeah, I didn't have that whole life flash before my eyes. It was just nothing. There was no darkness. There was no light. It was just nothing. I don't remember anything. Nothing.
I one time fainted. They were like, we literally thought you were dead. Your eyes rolled to the back of your head. And I saw something, but not like, I wasn't like saw God. I wanted to know so bad where my mind went when it was in that unconscious state. But then I came to and the light was right over my friend's head. And so she looked like an angel. And I was like, forever, I'm going to view you as my angel because that's the image I saw when I opened my eyes.
It's caused by disease or injury of some kind, particularly damage to or malfunction of the frontal lobe, the part of the brain that handles memory. Pathological déjà vu is easier to study since it occurs far more frequently in the individuals it affects, and researchers have been able to identify the areas of the brain where the feeling originates. But pathological déjà vu is generally considered to be a little different from your normal everyday déjà vu. For instance, those suffering from this condition may actually think they've been in a given situation before for sustained periods of time, rather than merely experiencing a fleeting feeling. A British man, Pat Long, suffered from one of the worst cases of déjà vu on record. In his mid-30s, Pat was diagnosed with a brain tumour the size of a lemon after suffering epileptic seizures. To most of us, déjà vu is nothing more than a strange moment, a kind of, that's weird, that lasts no more than a second or 2. Pat's déjà vu was something else entirely. In fact, it wasn't really déjà vu at all, but DEJA-VU, meaning already lived. We're building up quite the nice little list of French vocab here, aren't we? Anyway, as the name suggests, Pat's DEJA-VU meant he would believe he'd lived whole sequences of events before. The feeling was so strong and would last so long that for weeks on end, he would be almost entirely unable to differentiate between past experiences and the present, with memories, hallucinations, and the products of his own imagination all interchangeable to him. Epilepsy sufferers often experience bouts of déjà vu during seizures, as well as the experience described as the opposite of déjà vu, Jamais-vu, meaning never seen. Jamais-vu is when a situation that should be familiar instead feels foreign for some reason, as if you're experiencing it for the first time. Whilst not quite so famous as its cousin déjà vu, Jamais-vu is easier to induce. Repeat any word aloud enough times in a short space of time, and it will slowly start to lose its meaning.
All right.
Totally.
Meaning?
Yes.
Meaning?
I hate when this happens.
Meaning.
I used to do commercial casting back in the day. You know, you have to do these explanations for actors all day long, over and over again, because, you know, I'm auditioning actors throughout the day for an 8 to 10 hour period. Around the 4th, 5th hour, maybe the 6th, you just start to forget what you're saying. Even though you've been saying it all day long, because it's so automated, you start to realize you're losing a connection with the actual meaning of what you're saying. There's a disconnect that happens in the middle of trying to explain it, and you just have a pause. You're like, what am I saying? You just blank out because everything's just like, you're not even thinking about what you're saying anymore. Even when there's jokes in it, even when there's humor in it, like sometimes there's just like, and I've watched it happen to people. You know, I've watched a casting director give an explanation over and over again, and by the 6th hour, she's just like completely blanked, and she's started stuttering, and she had to gather herself before she explained it again. It's the weirdest thing.
That's bizarre.
Yeah.
When you repeat a word, I totally know that feeling. Or when you spell a word and you're like, that looks weird.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Inducing déjà vu is far more difficult, which means studying the sensation can be tricky. That's part of the reason we still don't know exactly how it works or what causes it. For most of us, it's not a daily occurrence, so getting data on a significant scale in a lab setting is difficult. Difficult, but not impossible. As part of a 2006 study, scientists at Leeds Memory Group used hypnosis in an attempt to induce déjà vu. They theorized the sensation was caused by a kind of malfunction in memory processing. When the human brain is presented with a new scene, it carries out an internal check to see whether elements of the scene have been observed before. If they have, a different part of the brain identifies the scene as familiar. The researchers hypothesized that déjà vu occurs when the second part of this process is triggered without the first, and they were able to successfully use hypnosis to artificially trigger the malfunction simply by telling hypnotized patients that the next time they saw a particular word, they would know it was familiar but not know where they'd last seen it. Does that explain the mystery then? Well, not necessarily, because other researchers attempting to recreate déjà vu have come to their own, sometimes very different conclusions. According to a 2014 study conducted at the University of St Andrews in Scotland, déjà vu may actually be a healthy and important neurological failsafe that performs a conflict resolution function to prevent false memories from forming. As part of the experiment, researchers used word association techniques to convince participants they'd been shown certain words they hadn't, effectively forming false memories. When later quizzed on these memories, around 2/3 of participants reported experiencing déjà vu.
Wow.
Interestingly, MRI scans of their brains showed activity not in the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory,
Prefrontal
but in the
cortex.
frontal cortex, which is responsible for decision-making. The researchers theorized that déjà vu was experienced as the brain attempted to resolve the conflict between what the participants had actually seen and what they thought they'd seen. As interesting as these ingenious lab-based explorations of déjà vu are, it's also possible there's a much simpler explanation to all of this, that déjà vu is simply triggered by a forgotten memory. After all, it's well established that less important and infrequently accessed memories are eventually forgotten, or at least heavily suppressed. Déjà vu may just be the feeling we get when something we're experiencing is similar to one of these discarded memories that's gone but not quite forgotten. Frequent travelers are also thought to experience déjà vu more regularly than others, which perhaps supports this theory. The more places you've been and the more different things you've seen and done, the more likely it is that a seemingly new experience might feel familiar to you, because it's similar to something you no longer quite remember, consciously at least.
A real quick question for you. How often do you experience déjà vu?
Maybe like once every 6 months.
It's just like a familiar feeling of like,
Yeah.
I've done this before.
Yeah.
Is it like, I've actually done this before and it seems like I'm repeating this? Because for me, déjà vu is often triggered like I had a dream about this and now I'm living this out. That's my experience of déjà vu.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I've had that happen so many times. Not lately, but it's like, it's usually triggered by guests coming over. Not with you yet, but like I've had it where a guest comes over and there's an exchange that we have that is unique.
Okay.
And I go, I've had this exchange before. I don't know why, but like I had this in a dream or something. It's like, it's the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
That's when I get déjà vu.
I feel like I get it. At first, I'm like, ooh, that was weird. And then I think, oh, I think I've done something similar to
Yeah.
this exact thing.
That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. What he mentioned a moment ago was interesting. He goes, you know, the resurgence of like a forgotten memory.
Yeah.
I had that just the other day, but it wasn't déjà vu. It was just like, it got triggered by something that happened because I was in the office with Achara. We were both working on something. I was working on like looking for new music and she got a phone call. My music was loud. And so she had to like get out of the room to have the phone call. And for some reason I got triggered about this memory where I was in my dad's bedroom. My dad was in his bed and my sister was like a baby next to him. She's just sitting there quiet, chilling. And my dad is trying to call someone. I don't know why I was in the room to begin with, but like my dad was trying to call someone and he got a voicemail. And as soon as it beeped, he tried to leave a message. And out of nowhere, for some reason, my sister goes, "Ah!" And she just starts making this loud, obnoxious baby noise. My dad's like trying to make her be quiet.
That's funny.
And I just ran out of the room laughing hysterically because I'm like, that's such a weird thing. Like, why would she, for no reason, not prompted at all, she just started making a loud noise as my dad was trying to leave an important voicemail.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, I love when certain memories or certain things trigger memories, especially from our childhood, because at least me, I don't remember so much of my childhood. And then when I get random, like, oh yeah, my brother and I went paintballing in this canyon. Like, I forgot we did that.
Yeah.
I like when that happens. I like déjà vu.
Yeah.
It's like this weird human experience. And I'm like, I think we're aliens.
We can't talk about déjà vu without giving a quick shout out to Sigmund Freud, who
Oh,
believed the phenomenon was caused by repressed desires or old traumatic memories.
Freud's all about sex.
That guy
Always.
linked everything to repressed desires and trauma. He also had a suspicion that regular sufferers of déjà vu were most likely fixated with their mother's genitals. But let's face it,
What?
Freud wasn't happy until he'd gotten at least one set of genitals into each of his theories. So we can probably take that with a pinch of salt. Saying that, there was some method to his genital-based madness on this occasion. Freud reasoned that your mother's secret garden is the only place in the world every single one of us has been just once before, I would hope. Whether or not people born by cesarean section experience déjà vu is, so far as I'm aware, unknown. There's a thesis subject for you budding psychologists out there. Make sure you give me a mention in the acknowledgements. Another older explanation.
He sure picked some what do you call it, stock footage with like the prettiest girls.
Yeah.
Like what the hell? Where'd he get that?
Definitely.
Be it one that remains a valid theory today, is known as dual processing. It suggests our experiences are handled in both hemispheres of the brain, and any delay in processing from one side may cause that eerie feeling of déjà vu. This was tested by Robert Efron in 1963, and he found that the temporal lobe of the brain's left hemisphere is where incoming information is sorted, but he also found that the temporal lobe receives this information both directly and after a short detour through the right hemisphere of the brain. If, for any reason, the information traveling through the right hemisphere is delayed at all, it could be assigned the wrong timestamp, giving a feeling of familiarity we assume is from long ago, but in reality was from mere moments before.
Oh,
The idea
weird.
that déjà vu may
That's
actually be a
interesting.
sense of familiarity from extremely recent events, rather than past ones, underpins another possible cause of the phenomenon: divided attention. The idea here is that when your attention is split as you experience a new situation, for example, if you're talking to a friend as you enter a pub for the first time, it may be that you take in your surroundings subliminally without really paying attention to them. In essence, you're subconsciously observing the situation faster than you consciously process it. This gap between the completion times of these two processes isn't noticeable enough that you'd suddenly pause like a robot without a command, but it is enough to think you'd experienced the event before, since, as in the dual processing theory, you kind of already have fractions of a second ago. To test this, Marsh and Brown showed groups of students photographs of various locations and asked them if they were familiar. Unbeknownst to the students, some of the images had been flashed onto the screen just before for a very short time, only 10 to 20 milliseconds, which was long enough for the students' brains to pick up on the images, but not long enough to consciously notice them. As expected, the locations that had flashed up, like those creepy transition shots in The Ring, had wormed their way into the students' subconscious and were recognized as familiar, even though the students had never been to any of them. Whichever theory you like the sound of, the truth is, they're all still just that, theories. Despite science's best efforts, we still don't know for sure what causes déjà vu. One of the latest studies, published in 2019, found that people who experience déjà vu more frequently use different parts of their brain to retrieve memories than people who rarely or never do. In particular, frequent déjà vu-ers, I'm well aware I've completely massacred the French language by this point, showed less activity in their hippocampi, the so-called librarians of the brain that help consolidate memories, suggesting that people who don't get déjà vu may simply be those with better memories. Equally,
Interesting.
if you consider the fact that déjà vu is most prevalent in people aged between 50
That doesn't apply to me though. People have often told me like my memory's crazy sharp. Like the things I will remember about something that happened 20 years ago, I can relay it to you like with fine detail.
Damn.
A lot. Because I ran into a friend at a little party the other day. We go way back, and I was explaining to him something that like when he came over to my place and we had this discussion and he ate this food and he sat there and I was like, Jesus, like, and he started to recall everything I was saying.
But wouldn't have been able to.
He wouldn't have recalled any of that without me prompting him.
Yeah.
But that experience, that kind of exchange happens to me a lot, where I connect with someone and I explain something to them. They're like, oh my God, oh, you're right. One interesting thing about what he was talking about, because like there's all this examination of the brain and everything's theoretical. I mean, maybe it's not relevant, but it seems relevant to me. It might be tangential at best, but there's this effort to try to see people's dreams. Like that's been going on for a while, but like there's imaging that we have seen where it's like like the cutting edge technology of someone is sleeping and there's like, I don't know, monitors and stuff like that on them and whatever. And computers have been able to generate an image. It's not the clearest image, but they've been able to generate an image of what you are dreaming about.
Insane. That's insane.
If that's possible, like, I'm sure that we can get closer to the answer on this, you know?
15 and 25 years old.
Oh, wait,
Perhaps
I missed the important part of that.
prevalent in better memories. Equally, if you consider the fact that deja vu is most prevalent in people aged between 15 and 25 years old, perhaps it's just a sign that we're not senile yet and can still tell real memories from fake ones. A comforting thought for anyone in that age bracket, and a sobering one for all of us over that threshold.
Yeah.
Of course, I couldn't go this whole video without a quick nod to the more out there explanations, like that from the Denzel Washington thriller, appropriately titled Deja Vu, where it's the result of FBI-sponsored time travel, and particularly the one made famous by Keanu Reeves wearing all black. No, I'm not talking about John Wick, or his adverts for Saint Laurent menswear, or even his red carpet appearance at the Toy Story 4 premiere. Seriously, Keanu, don't get typecast or anything. No, I'm talking about his rise to superstardom in The Matrix. Do I need a spoiler alert for a 21-year-old film? Anyway, as you doubtless remember, in the film, Neo sees the same cat cross a doorway twice and nonchalantly comments, "Oh, deja vu." As if seeing the world literally repeat itself before your very eyes is no big deal. His team very much disagree, jumping into action as Trinity explains that deja vu is usually a glitch in the Matrix that happens when they change something. And hey, if you want to take deja vu as evidence we're all just motionless bodies plugged into the machine, I'm not going to stop you. Thanks for watching.
That was interesting. The video is 16 minutes long, and I was thinking, and you know, about 5 to 7 minutes in, I'm like, is he gonna get to the part where he explains how this works? He really drew this out in a methodical way that works great for YouTube algorithm, because it's not like he was saying fluffy stuff. It's not like he was just filling it in. He was taking his time to get to the idea as he was expressing a lot of different ideas. Not to be redundant, sorry. But I appreciated the information nonetheless. I thought it was cool. Like, to find some semblance of information as to how any of this works and why. Because like when you can break it down scientifically like that, or just logically, it helps you to feel less uncomfortable when you're experiencing some of these things.
Yeah, it's like with the brain, space, and the oceans.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about, it's so hard to study those things.
Yeah.
And especially with the brain, because you're talking about humans, and like he mentioned, we're not in the 1950s anymore. We're like, let me just break your head open because you're poor and I can study you.
Yeah.
We like can't do that anymore. So people have to give their bodies to science, or give their bodies to science, whether they're dead or alive. They have to sign off on that sort of experiment. So I liked that he went in a roundabout version, because we don't actually know. There's all these theories that I think some of them speak some truth, but we don't know for sure.
If only we could just be careless with our morals and we could find out things so much quicker.
Yeah, if only we could just study everyone's brain.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
We'll get it back.
You know what I always wonder about is when they put those monitors on people's heads, I always wonder if it's less effective if people have a full head of hair. It probably doesn't interfere in the slightest, but I'm like, but there's stuff in the way, wouldn't that?
It's all their secrets.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
yeah, it definitely is harder to read.
This was fun to learn about the theories of why. He didn't address the notion of experiencing something you experienced in a dream, but maybe it's not relevant to deja vu, and I just applied the term deja vu because it was convenient. Because I've had that, like I mentioned earlier, that experience multiple times where I dreamt something and then literally lived out something very similar to that dream, and it's just odd that it was like eerily like.
That's called the law of attraction.
Okay, sure, why not? Let's go with that. I'll take that one. You guys,
dreams are crazy.
Yeah, dreams are crazy.
Yeah.
You guys, thanks so much for hanging out. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Do subscribe, bell icon, all notifications, and vote this up. I'm Jaby Koay. This is
STEPH SABRAW.
Peace out.